can't see the monitor. His light's right in the Gotta keep me organized.
So if you're the...
He broke it.
Now can you see it? If you're the hair doctor, you kind of have to get hair, you know.
I have to have hair.
I said if you're the hair doctor, you kind of have to.
Yeah, and I fight like hell. My dad was totally bald.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Before we transplanted him.
No way. Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, fight like hell.
Hey, that's half the reason I'm here, man. I was like, my dad's been pretty much the same amount of bald that I can think of, you know, since I was a kid.
Actually, this is the other Dr. Bauman. He was a dentist. That's Dr. Bauman's father.
Wow, that's crazy.
So
Wow. Can be done.
You can turn the clock back.
Yeah,
That's
no
the
kidding.
thing.
That's crazy. I got time.
Ready? Okay. You got speed when you're ready.
Sweet, let's do it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Travis Makes Friends podcast. Today, I'm making friends with Dr. Alan Bauman. Dr. Bauman, welcome to the show.
Travis, thanks so much.
Of
Great
course.
to be here with you.
Yeah, hey, I mean, thanks for having me out in sunny Florida.
Truly our pleasure.
Yeah, no, I was excited to come out to Miami because the last time I was here, I just sweat profusely for like 3 days straight. I made the mistake of, I was going to this event that was here, and I made the mistake of, it was a half a mile from my hotel. I was like, it's a half a mile, can't be that bad, you know? So I started walking. I was halfway there, and I had to just take my shirt off because I was
completely sweat all the way through.
Yeah. I was just like, if I don't take my shirt off right now, it's gonna be drenched by the time I get there, and I'm gonna smell terrible all day. So I had to literally take my shirt off and then get to the bathroom and towel off, you know. So this is a different Miami, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's a little bit cooler this time of year, a little bit less humid, you know. But we are known for the humidity over summer. So
yeah. It was rough, but
yeah, we do have this thing called air conditioning.
Yeah, and it's like a lifesaver, quite literally. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me out, man. I appreciate it. We've been talking about doing this for quite some time, but as you know, we try to do everything that we can in person.
Sure.
And then you know, I'm coming from Vegas, so just happened to work out that we're able to make this work. So I appreciate that. I want to go back in time here because most people that are watching any of your stuff, are familiar with your work, know exactly what you do, but I would like to peel back the curtain and figure out how you got here. So let's talk about, let's say, 10-year-old Alan Bauman. Take me back there, set the scene for me. What was life like?
Yeah, 10 years old. I was probably disassembling flashlights, trying to put them back together maybe.
Technical kid?
Yeah, doing you know, puzzles,
Okay.
Playing video games,
Okay.
or you know.
What video games?
Well, back in the day, I had Pong.
Oh, yes.
So that goes way back.
The
But,
first
you know,
ever, right? I mean,
it was
first ever, like, commercially, you know, from what I understand. Anyway.
Yes, it was a black and white set that you connected to my TV, and you could do target practice, you could do Pong,
Nice.
and I think Breakout, and that was like the end of it. But you know, I went through everything.
Yeah.
You know, Atari and television, Sega,
Yeah.
all the way Nintendo, all the way through.
Did you continue playing throughout?
Most of the
like
time.
most systems?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you play it anymore?
I don't play
No.
much anymore.
Yeah.
No. Most of my video game stuff is actually surgery. So that's been the replacement for the video games.
Yeah. It's still something technical with your hands,
Yeah,
but a
for
little
sure.
bit in a little bit different of a way. Probably a little bit more profitable use of your time, I assume.
A little bit better use of time, but they say that today surgeons that play video games actually make less errors, and they're better surgeons and have better outcomes. So there's research to prove to my dad, who told me, get off the video games, come on, get to work. You know,
I actually
do some homework.
That it was on Joe Rogan, Elon Musk. We're talking about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, like
That's
a
correct.
couple weeks ago, I saw that episode and I was like, "That's crazy," because he was talking about how he was like, "Why isn't it required for surgeons to be playing video games then?"
Yeah, right. If you knew there was something that's going to make you 25% better, wouldn't that be like mandatory?
That's
like in medical school.
That's a heavy lift for something like surgery. You know, like 25% is not 2%. You know, like that's a solid lift in skill just from playing a video game in your spare time or something.
Absolutely.
Like, it should be like part of the required. Like if I have a surgeon operating on me, I want the one that's 25% better.
Right. So you'll have to, when you interview them, hey, did you play video games as a kid? You know,
right.
or
exactly.
now.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you're 10 years old. You like to take things apart, put them back together. You're playing a lot of video games. What was home life like? What was what were your parents doing?
Well, my dad's a dentist, and
Okay.
he's still practicing, and so you know, my home life was pretty basic. You know,
Okay.
outside, drinking from the garden hose, riding a bicycle without a helmet.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Watchung, New Jersey,
Okay.
which is like 10 minutes from my dad's office, which was located in Scotch Plains, Fanwood. Still has his office there.
Oh wow. No way.
He's in his 80s, and he still practices
Still
dentistry
practices.
twice a week, about 10 patients.
Good for him.
And my parents still married, and they travel the world. They're oversharing on social media, and every day it's hashtag still celebrating.
Yeah, nice.
So if they're not
That's
celebrating
awesome.
their birthday, they're celebrating their anniversary, and so
Good for them.
Or you know, putting whatever they're cooking on Facebook
Yeah.
that night, or wherever they're out for dinner, partying, and so forth.
So growing up in the home of a dentist, was there many options for you in terms of go to school or not go to school, or was that just kind of like, yeah,
Oh
you
no,
gotta
school,
go to school?
school is the thing, and so
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people say, well, when did I decide I was interested in medicine? And of course, you know, watching my dad's dental practice was, you know, my first exposure
Sure.
to patient care. And but if you go back even further, I think you could probably have asked my grandmother, who's obviously since passed, you know, when did Alan decide he wanted to go to medical school? She probably would have said something like the day he was born. You know, so it was a little bit preordained, and it was probably a good thing that I was good at biology and chemistry and math and those things that were required as I went through. But I remember vividly watching my dad in his dental practice, which is probably more like a Norman Rockwell painting than anything else, you know,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of the hardwood paneling in the office and just the smell of the carpet and things like that in the waiting room. Those are vivid memories for me.
Yeah.
But I remember on the wall there was a needle point, and it was basically like a picture of a shingle, you know, like what you would hang outside.
Okay.
You know, Dr. Lawrence Bauman, DDS, right? That's his name. And then it said painless dentistry. And I remember asking him, Dad, why does it have to say painless dentistry? And he told me that, well, if you hurt your patients, they typically don't like to come back. And so that was my first
That's true.
lesson in patient care.
Yeah.
Do no
From
harm.
that. Yeah, right. That's a pretty solid lesson.
So, but the dental practice, you know, not to say it was a dark room or whatever, but you know, it just that dentistry didn't really interest me. Although it was
interesting.
something that my dad obviously is still passionate about.
Yeah, right.
And had the dexterity working with his hands. The other memory I have that's really strong from childhood is my mom's oil painting.
Okay, I was about to ask about mom.
Yeah, I really honestly didn't love the smell of the oil paints, and so I probably forced her to maybe give it up a little bit sooner than she wanted to.
Yeah, yeah.
So she did do watercolors after that, but
Okay.
but I remember the oil paint smell
Yeah.
so vividly from childhood.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So what do you get when you cross a dentist and an oil painter?
I feel like there's a punchline coming, but
Yeah,
I'll
a
let
hair
you
transplant
know.
surgeon,
I was gonna
obviously,
say,
yeah.
I was gonna say probably a hair transplant guy. Okay, so your high school years, fond memories for you, up and down. How do you look at those times?
I mean, high school was probably similar to most. I mean, there are parts that were fun and I liked, and then there are other parts I really didn't love. I wasn't a great athlete in high school. I was a fencer, which was basically like acting out Dungeons and Dragons, essentially, in real life. Getting to at least try to stab people with a
Even the
with a
sport is
sword.
nerdy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Right.
mean it's basically like halfway between wrestling and chess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But there are a lot of chess moves, so to speak. There's a lot of mental preparation as well as a dexterity to actually do fencing.
Sure.
And trying to stab somebody with a sharp object, that was kind of acting out some fantasies too.
Yeah.
Not exactly like surgery, but you get the idea.
Yeah, right.
And so that was some fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then
But academics were always
academics.
you excelled in that area.
I did well,
Okay.
and even right out of high school, I applied to accelerated medical programs.
Okay, got it.
So again, I was
you were-
interested
yeah,
in medicine.
obviously from the start.
I was In fact, I had an opportunity to watch surgery before I could drive a car. So one of
No kidding.
my primary mentor in medicine was a very prominent plastic surgeon on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and he invited me to come and watch him operate.
Interesting.
And at the time, I really didn't understand, what surgery was. I mean, you couldn't look it up there was no YouTube,
Sure,
there's no Snapchat, even Discovery Channel didn't have anything graphic that you could watch. And so I said, well, what kind of surgeon are you? And he said, I'm a plastic surgeon. I said, well, you operate on plastic? That's interesting. So that was an early lesson on what cosmetic surgery and reconstructive surgery was all about.
Siblings? No siblings.
I have a younger sister,
Younger sister.
Mhm.
How much younger?
5 years younger.
Okay. What did she end up doing?
So she is a like a geologist. So
Oh, okay.
Geochemistry. She has a master's in geochemistry. She works for the EPA.
Wow.
And her family lives in Virginia,
So just
Alexandria, Virginia.
bunch of slackers in the Bauman family. Yeah.
But she was more the mountain type, climbing the mountain,
Okay.
dirt on the fingernail,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
type of thing.
yeah.
Now she's in a cubicle, of course,
Right.
at the EPA in DC, but no, she has a beautiful family, and I'm, blessed with 2 nieces.
That's awesome.
On that side of the family.
So medical school was kind of always on the horizon for you. Was there ever anything else that you considered? Like if you could snap your fingers and have the degree of success that you've had now in the field that you're in, and have that in any other field, would there be one that would immediately come to mind, or would you have to think
Yeah,
about it?
probably computer science. I mean,
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was proficient in computers. I had, I was programming on a TRS-80.
Okay.
I had an Apple II, Apple II Plus, Apple IIe, Mac all the way through. So,
Gotcha.
I think when I asked my grandmother, I said, well, what if I don't really want to go to medical school? What would that look like? And she said, well, Alan, you could be anything you want to be the day after you graduate medical school.
Once you're done with medical school, you can do whatever you
then
want.
You're free and clear. Yeah, go ahead and do whatever you want. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, just figure out a different way to pay off the debt.
Right,
Yeah.
but I, maybe, in an alternate universe, I participated in the .com boom or something like that.
Yeah, interesting.
I always had an affinity for the technical and computer science.
Yeah, but obviously nothing close to what your interest was in the medical field.
No, I mean, surgery was the passion.
Okay.
At least that's, I saw plastic surgery, I saw how it was done.
Yeah.
I was fascinated by that, and I saw the outcomes, right? So it was something artistic and technical at the same time that was changing people's lives, and I just knew that was the direction I wanted to go in.
So what was the first steps then, leaving high school?
The first steps out of high school was into college in California. So UC Riverside had an accelerated medical program with UCLA.
I grew up right around there.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Inland Empire.
Yep. I was born in Fontana.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. We lived in Hesperia at the time, which is
Okay.
a little suburb town. But
Yeah. So I was at school in Riverside. I lived a year in Moreno Valley, and then
Okay.
I moved in with some fraternity brothers, and then things kind of changed a little bit, socially and professionally.
yeah, how'd you like that move from East Coast New Jersey all the way down to SoCal?
So I felt like I was on another planet.
No
and
kidding.
I think that probably most people at UC Riverside looked at me like I was from another planet. They weren't even sure if New Jersey had a beach or not.
Yeah.
If it was, exactly where is New Jersey? They
Right.
thought it was like Midwest or something.
Yeah.
Most Riverside students were from California,
Well, from
obviously,
Riverside.
and anybody who was outside of California was either Washington, Oregon.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they even ever met anyone from.
What
the East
brought you out
Coast.
there?
Well, it was the accelerated medical program that
Huh.
I got into. So it was supposed to be a combined program between UC Riverside and UCLA. And I went partly through that program.
Okay.
And then made a decision to change gears a little bit.
Okay. Got it.
There was a time where I remember a discussion with my advisor who was encouraging me to do basically research. And I wasn't really interested in laboratory research at that time. I was volunteering at the hospital. I was in the ER, maybe stacking IV bags, but I was looking at trauma patients and taking blood pressures and things like that. And I just didn't want to spend my time, in like a dungeon washing glassware.
Sure.
So I ended up switching out of that program because basically they almost gave me an ultimatum, like, well, you have to do this kind of research if you're going to go forward in the program. And I didn't really like that kind of pressure. I changed my major to psychobiology, very West Coast major.
Psychobiology.
Yeah, so think of it like a double major, like psychology and biology. But,
Got it, okay.
In California, it's psychobiology.
Got it.
And which was great. It was a great major. We were doing, sociology of the family and, neurotransmitters related to aggression. So it was very much like wide-angle stuff on how people interact, and then very, very detailed in like a biochemistry type aspect. And then I applied to medical school the regular route.
Okay, I was just going to say, so the path then forward was?
The more traditional method.
Yeah.
Which meant that I had to do my application process.
Yeah.
I applied to many schools out in California and across the country. I got into a few. All of them were actually cold weather schools, and so then that's when I decided to go to New York Medical College out
Okay.
of that group,
So back
which was
to-
close to my parents.
Sure, back to the East Coast.
Yeah, and close to my mentor, so that was.
Have you been back to SoCal at all in terms of living for an extended period of time?
And I've never lived back in
Okay.
Southern California.
How
I
did you-
visited a few times.
How did you
a lot
like
of
it when you were there?
conferences. I loved it. I mean, I didn't really know. I thought Riverside was on the beach, so I was basically as ignorant as the people who were there. You know, I didn't realize how
the
far
same
it
people
was.
thinking New Jersey was in the Midwest.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, you know, I was just as ignorant. But Riverside was fine. It was about an hour from LA,
Yeah.
about 40 minutes from the beach.
Yeah.
You know, it was great. I had a great time. I had a very robust Greek life. I was very involved with the fraternity,
Okay.
and that was my first taste in basically service to the community.
Mm.
We were
Okay.
very, very heavy on community service
Mm.
and fundraising and different things like raising money for ALS and things like that.
Oh, okay.
Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yeah. Do you recommend? Because I feel like the perception of fraternities is always just about partying. And I didn't go the traditional school route, so I never had any of those experiences, and that was always my perception. But then obviously I've had a lot of people on the show, and we've talked about these types of things. And it's surprising to me how often so many of them have nothing to do with any of that, and they're actually like, again, like a really good use of your time. Not to say that, you know, having fun and partying is a bad use of your time necessarily at that time in your life, but it was actually more of a productive thing where you felt like you had leadership roles and you learned a lot and met some great people and would recommend it to a lot of other people.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was a nice balance of all the above. We certainly weren't like the party fraternity.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of social functions.
Yeah, of course.
And,
And you should.
A lot of them were at my house.
Oh, really?
You know, every Friday. But you know, there were a lot of opportunity, as I said, for community service, which was great. The leadership roles in the fraternity, you know, whether you're, you know, part of the, you know, the leadership or contributing to it in some way, shape, or form, or even just being that person to kind of make sure that everything's going along smoothly in all the different parts of the moving system. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Wherever I could fit, you know, an idea or oversee a project or oversee a social event or whatever to tie up the loose ends.
Yeah.
I think I learned not in multitasking, but planning and integration and how to work with people.
Yeah. When did you feel in terms of the stage of life that you were in that you started picking up on different leadership lessons and things like that? Because you've obviously, you know, something that you've excelled at, leading a company all these years. Was that something that came naturally to you? Was that something you had to work on?
I don't think it was natural at all. But you know, looking back, my dad, as I said, was a dentist, but he also always had kind of a side business. So he was very much an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I think that some of the work that he did in his outside ventures and even multi-level marketing at some points during his
That's interesting.
outside career. You know,
As a
has to do
dentist,
with-
that seems interesting to me.
Yeah, so he would always listen to books and tapes, you know, and so there were a lot of books that I read
like Zig
as a
Ziglar,
teenager.
Jim Rohn
Imagine
type
Thinking
stuff.
Big, you know, How to Win Friends, Influence People.
Mm.
You know, everything from Dale Carnegie to Zig Ziglar.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, those were like always those concepts were always around. And
That's
even
fantastic.
as a child, as a teenager, we would go to you know, big conferences, and some of them were rah rah, and some of them were business oriented.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of my parents' friends would say that influenced me a lot. But I didn't think it was innate, and I don't think I had a lot of leadership characteristics, you know, even through high school and college. I really
Okay.
didn't, and it was in fact, I was deathly afraid of public speaking.
Well, I
And
mean,
so-
you and 99% of everybody else on the planet. So, so, you know.
So I think the fraternity kind of helped with that because, you know,
Yeah.
you're in a safe, you know, room, so to speak, you know,
Sure.
with friends and so brothers and such. And then building the practice, obviously, I had to get out to talk to people and to present my
Yeah.
ideas, my dreams, what I wanted to create.
Right.
Much later on, obviously after the training, of course.
As a formally trained surgeon, how do you look at those types of books that you were talking about a second ago, the Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie, you know, Napoleon Hill genre category of self-improvement type books versus, like, you know, more traditional education or books that are written more by Malcolm Gladwell or an Adam Grant or some of these more, you know, I guess, qualified people to talk about it? Like, how do you parse through information? I guess is what I'm asking.
Wow, that was great. I mean, tipping point.
Yeah.
I think that for a surgeon to become good, or you just like whether you're proficient in an instrument or a sport, you've got to put the time in.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. There's debate whether it's the 10,000 hours or not.
Sure.
But you got to put the time on tissue, as we say in surgery. So I don't know.
I just
think
mean
a lot
more
of
like some of those. I feel like these two worlds, because I exist in kind of both of them, and
Yes.
I've interviewed a lot of people that are in this kind of like, I guess guru type world. Although I try to stay away from real gurus that build kind of cults instead of helping people. But anyway, that's a different conversation. And then I also have had conversations with plenty of psychologists and doctors and formally educated folks, and I feel like the two worlds kind of butt heads a little bit. I guess kind of what I'm asking. Do you feel that at all?
I don't really feel that way.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm reading a book or listening to a podcast, I try to extract. Obviously, it reflects on my own experience, and then extract what I need at that time. And then sometimes I'll go back and listen again, or read again months or years later, and I see something completely different.
Okay.
But I know what you're talking about in terms of those gurus are building cults, and they got a certain amount of following, and they have their own plan of action that they're trying to do, and
they're not
unfortunately maybe it's more self-serving than to try to help the folks
That's what
who
I
are
mean.
in that.
Or they just don't know what they don't know type of a thing, and that's where I start having an issue, when it's like when you start preaching one way and my way is the only way type of a thing, and it's like, but literally none of the research backs up what you're saying. So how does this help the masses? It might be good for you, but I don't know if it's going to be helpful for a lot of these other people. So that's all. I was just curious about that, because I've found just conflicting sides of both of those stories, and so I always like to ask people who have the formal education, because that's not my background either.
Yeah.
But I try to gather information from as many sources as I can.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that I remembered all of that, from my childhood, but I did.
Of course,
someplace I absorbed
it seeped in.
Right, exactly.
Subconsciously at least.
Amongst the folks who were, trying to help those who were in business, like my dad, who were side entrepreneurs and things like that. Today it's like a side gig or whatever. But,
Right, it's the side hustle. Yeah. Did you ever pick up on any of those?
A side hustle?
Side hustles?
No, I never did. No.
It shows though, because you're obviously very
focused.
Successful and you focused on one thing, and you're great at it. So, which is probably the advice that most people should adhere to, and the one that I struggle with the most.
Right. No, I think it's important to find the thing that kind of drives you, and then put your heart and soul into that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the time go easy. I mean, I remember my dad saying, well, if you find something you like to do, then you don't have to work a day. That type of idea. And my team will tell you that the days are long, but for me, it just seems to go fast.
Yeah. How do you advise young people that are kind of 15, 16, 17, they're looking at life, they're looking at these different career paths? Because like what I do, you can decide to do anytime.
Right.
Like you could decide right now that you could, you know what, I just want to be a podcaster. You could do that at any point. I can't just be like, you know what, I want to be a plastic surgeon, and then dedicate the next 12 years of my life to go back to school, get a bachelor's, apply to medical school, go through like all these different things that have to happen in order to be able to do that. So how do you advise somebody who's that young, who maybe they don't know if they want to go to medical school, but it seems interesting, but it's obviously it's such a commitment just to get to the point where you can start the career, that if you put in all this work and do all the hours and then you realize you don't want to do it and you're 34 and you have all this debt, and now what do you do with your life?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question, because I have two boys that are in their 20s, and neither of them are going to go to medical school. So obviously, I couldn't encourage them, to do it. But medicine is a little bit different today. I mean, I'm in a unique position in a unique field. But I always told them, look, just be true to your heart, and follow that. So both of them are amazing, are great students, but they're completely different, on their paths. One of them is hospitality management, real estate, and digital marketing, and the other one is chemical engineering. So it's like, very different.
Yeah. Just personality types, you think?
Both of them excelled in school. The younger one is, I would say, more of a grinder.
What's the age difference?
So they're 2 years apart.
Okay.
2.5 years,
Yeah, so that wasn't
21,
even like
23.
yeah, it wasn't even like a siloed raising either. It wasn't like 6 or 7 years or something like that. That's interesting that they kind of divergent paths there.
Yeah, I mean, they're just, their personalities are completely different.
Yeah.
You know?
So I'm a parent. I have a 5-year-old and I say 3-year-old. She's gonna be 4 in about a week.
Oh.
So
That's a great age.
yeah, 5 and 4. So I always have to selfishly ask parenting advice whenever I'm talking to a parent who has successfully gotten kids out into the real world doing things in society. So talk to me real quick about your
I would say my
quick
wife
hit
and
parenting
I,
advice.
yeah, I would say my wife and I, are probably more disciplined with the kids over the time than most.
Okay.
Karen is by profession a teacher.
Okay.
So she's kindergarten, 2nd grade, since retired, but has a master's degree in education.
Okay.
And I think that plays an important role. But
What do you mean by more disciplined?
well, I mean, like this is what you're going to do, and you're going to do it this way. I mean, just
okay.
Tighter control than what I see out there, like amongst our friends.
Okay.
In terms of this is how we're out for dinner. This is how we expect you to behave at the table.
This is how a Bauman comports themselves in society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a series of small, consistent efforts over time.
Yeah.
So it's and you have to also exude that as well. You can't just be saying one thing and doing another. So you have to lead by example on that.
Yeah, that's the kicker. It's easy just to be like, all right, you have to do these things,
And then
they're
you
like,
go off and do something.
yeah,
completely different.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's not going to work. You have to work hard and do your homework, and then I'm sitting
while
on
you're
the lazy
watching
boy
TV,
watching
yeah.
TV playing video games.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Get back to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between a boss and a leader, right? It's the leaders out front actually showing people what to do versus just telling them this is what you should be doing because it's probably good for you, but it's like the smoker telling you to not smoke. Like while they're lighting up, like don't ever smoke. It's bad for you.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so parenting aside, so basically the unsexiest answer we could possibly give, but that's typically how it goes.
That's what works.
How it goes. That's how it
That's
goes.
what works.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at your friends group, I would say you probably want to be the more disciplined one.
Yeah. Sure.
That's just how it is.
Well, I think it plays into. We have a series right now that we're running. So this is the first time we've ever done this. In November, we're doing something we call 30 Days of Friendship. And so we're doing every single day of November episode releases. So actually, when I'm done here, I got to go back to my hotel and record a couple of episodes because it's every single day we're releasing. And they're all solo shows, which is different for me because most of my show is just interviewing fascinating people. And one of the themes that we explored for like the first week and a half of that was all about your relationship to self. And that was one of the things that I talked about a lot was self-discipline and how it plays into every other area of your life and how it plays into your own respect for yourself as a person and how liking yourself and respecting yourself bleeds into all of your interpersonal relationships and your friendships and your marriage, even your relationship with your kids.
Health and wellness,
all of those things, mental health,
Sure.
Which as we're finding out more and more and more, everything bleeds into each other and you can't just silo one group and be physically healthy and have that not affect
Sure.
your mental and then, or mental health not affect your physical. And that was one of the most wild things that I've seen on this loneliness epidemic I've been doing a ton of research on for the show, is that it's as physically damaging as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Just social isolation and subjective feelings of loneliness are bleeding into your physical health, and that was wild to me to understand that those two things correlate, which is something that you mentioned when we're walking over the studio. Is you're going to Vegas for it's like a longevity conference?
Yeah, so I'll be in Vegas for American Academy of Anti-Aging,
Yeah.
which I've been a member of since 1998.
Phew. So basically when it started.
A couple of years after it started, I've been a member.
Yeah.
I think they celebrated 30 years or something.
Okay. Did you ever anticipate that was going to be a part of your career? Like longevity, wellness, because it seems like these are almost separate fields, like medical field and longevity, wellness field. Again, I feel like anyway, and I could be totally wrong because it's not my field. I feel like sometimes they butt heads, or there's conflicting advice sometimes between medical professionals and like, you know, a wellness clinic or something like that.
I think today it's easier to see those differences because when we didn't even have the word longevity.
That's
I
what I
think,
mean.
like
yeah.
10 years ago. I mean, it wasn't even in existence, you
Right.
know. So nobody was talking about health span and lifespan and things like
Right.
that. And as I said on the way over, as a member of the American Academy of Anti-Aging in 1998, we didn't even have one published clinical trial on any kind of animal or vegetable or insect that even expanded the normal lifespan. We had nothing.
Wow.
It was all just
In
a hope and a
1998.
dream. It was all hope and dream. And
Wow.
it wasn't until just about 10 or 15 years ago did we start to see that there were actual ways to expand lifespan. You know, and of course it starts with fruit flies and yeast and things like that.
Sure.
And then it goes to rats and so forth, and rabbits and dogs, and now, you know, everybody's talking about lifespan and health span.
Yeah. No
So,
kidding.
but I think what I liked about that particular conference is that it was a little bit outside of the traditional medical path, which I enjoyed having kind of a different exposure. I didn't know at that moment that all the lies I've been taught in medical school, you know, things in terms of, you know, cholesterol and statin medications and, you know, even antibiotics and pain medications and things like that. I mean, look, I was there in the hospital when the drug reps were coming in and telling us that synthetic opioids were not addictive.
What?
They were telling us that this is less addictive than, you know, these you know, than heroin or whatever. You know, and so
thank the Sackler family
OxyContin,
for that.
You know, the OxyContin, you know, dilemma and epidemic.
Yeah.
Was really started at, you know, and my job as an intern in the hospital was to basically stamp out and write out all of the narcotic pain medications for all the patients that were operating on that day.
Wow.
And it was just a stack, and these patients would leave with a bag
That's
of narcotics,
crazy.
you know, after whatever,
Like
a hernia, appendicitis, or whatever.
just
Anything you-
over-the-counter heroin, basically.
It was, and they were telling us it
That's
was, you know,
crazy.
safe and not addictive, and this is, and here, use this little card for the pain scale. So it's a smiley face on this end and a frowny face on this end.
Yeah.
And so, you know, how are you feeling today? And so if you're a frowny face, you get a script.
Wow. That's
You know,
crazy.
we up your medications. And so that's what was happening. And so I don't think I understood that. I mean, now looking back,
Sure.
we know what kind of, you know, devastation that's caused.
Absolute
throughout.
devastation. Yeah.
So, but the A4M always, American Academy of Anti-Aging, always had kind of a unique approach.
Yeah.
You know, they always brought in alternative medicine stuff, complementary medicine. There were, I would say, technical partners, you know, in the expo, talking
Yeah.
about nutrition. What did I learn about nutrition in medical school? You could write it on the back of a matchbook with a crayon, honestly. I mean, it was like, here's how to calculate a diabetic diet, and that was the end of it.
Wow. Wow.
So I was learning all these things by osmosis, just being there, seeing
Sure.
it, and talking to those people, and that really became the tribe that I was attracted to.
Well-
and then now that is the anti-aging, longevity, biohacking world. That's what it's really
Well,
turned into.
man, good for you, man. I genuinely appreciate that from somebody who has been a patient for a medical professional to care about that type of stuff. It's so jarring sometimes when I go into a doctor's office and the person giving me like health advice, not to be crass or rude, is 120 pounds overweight. You know, hair is scraggly and they look greasy and gross. I'm just like, how are you? Like, I know you got a degree and stuff, but like, I don't know if I completely take all your advice seriously because like, like there's a clear discrepancy between how you take care of your body and what you're telling me to do. It's hard for me to justify the gap. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
I'll tell you a
appreciate
story.
it.
I was at in my general surgery residency. Pretty sure it was at either Beth Israel or Mount Sinai, and my chief resident was in between coronary vascular disease operations, you know, coronary bypass treatments and procedures, smoking cigarettes in the stairwell.
That is insane.
I mean, he was a chain smoker. In between, he would do surgeries.
Yeah, right.
Once in a while, like when he put down the cigarette, he'd go and do surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, that's what it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that is insane. Do you
A
think
heart surgeon.
Yeah, that a heart surgeon.
Thoracic surgeon. Yeah, thoracic surgeon. Operating on lung cancer, heart patients.
Wow. Do you think that there's like a pendulum shift that's happening, like a swing the other way now?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see. I mean, look at what we got. We have RFK Jr.
Right.
I mean, who had risen in prominence, after exposing everything that Fauci had done in his past. I mean, one of the most horrific books to read before bedtime ever in the history of the world is The Real Anthony Fauci. But it tells the story, and it's well researched and well footnoted.
That's the crazy part. The crazy part to me is like, how are people not talking about that more when it seems like if the information in that book were false information, that he would have been like, he'd be in lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit for like blatant for libel, for blatant disinformation about defaming somebody else's character. None of that's happened.
Correct.
That's mind-blowing to me, that this is the person that was in charge of public health for an entire nation during the pandemic, and nobody was asking questions about that. Nobody was like, hey, what about this though?
Well, remember during the pandemic, there were forces at play that were suppressing the people who were asking questions about that. So I have a lot of colleagues who were deplatformed, a lot of friends in the medical profession.
So dangerous.
Who were taken off of YouTube, their information on Meta, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, canceled, shadow banned on the algorithm. So they get like 2 likes instead of 2,000 or 20,000. And now we see them able to kind of talk about it more. And of course, Elon with X.
The acquisition of X was insane. The Twitter files were mind-blowing to me. To see the just blatant censorship. Proven blatant censorship. And again, nobody talks about this. You have to listen to podcasts, and then all of a sudden you're like fringe and a conspiracy theorist when you're getting your information from a podcast instead of a news source.
You had to watch a video on Rumble? Yeah, because they don't delete it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But no, I mean, we have to be intelligent, accessing intelligently this information, and assessing it. But the more information we have, the better choices that we can make, and we can filter through this.
Like Michio Kaku says, correct ideas come from interaction with incorrect ideas. And if you never allow those ideas to interact, how do you know which ones are correct? And if you start just censoring an entire swath of information, how do you know that the information that you have is the accurate information? There's no way to actually tell. There's no contrast between right and wrong if you're only allowing one source of information to exist. And it's pretty mind-blowingly blatant. But the reason I asked the pendulum shift thing is, so I had a recent battle with cancer probably 6 months ago or so, and after my cancer surgery, you might actually be able to guess this. Most people don't guess it. Can you guess what my prescription pain medication was for cancer surgery?
I'm assuming it's probably just a super strong narcotic,
It was the complete opposite of that. Complete opposite. That's why I asked about the pendulum shift. They prescribed me 400 milligram ibuprofen.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
It's good, but also I was in a lot of pain. I was like, can you guys like 4 days? Like I don't need 4 weeks of this stuff, but
so that's where the
I'm
pendulum
in some
shifted
pain.
out of taking care of your
exactly.
pain. So you were
but
on
I'm in the core
face.
Yeah, exactly. I was definitely a frowny face. Yeah, well, because right after surgery, obviously, they give you Dilaudid and they give you, the one everybody's scared of right now, fentanyl. They give fentanyl, all this other stuff, and then I leave with a prescription to go get basically just like over-the-counter ibuprofen. It's not even 800 milligram ibuprofen.
Right.
It's just
ibuprofen.
Tough it out. Yeah, exactly.
Here's a bullet to bite on.
Exactly.
That would be the ultimate part of the pendulum, right? Right. Here's a bullet and a shot of whiskey.
Right. Exactly. Which is essentially what my pain medication was afterwards, because I didn't even get the script filled, because I was like, what? I have that at the house. Like I have Tylenol. You know what I mean? Like what are we doing here, guys? But I understand I am in the core demographic of like the most likely to get addicted out of that. Like young men. I understand we're kind of in that demographic. But I was just like, can you meet me halfway here, guys? Like 3 days. That's all I'm asking for. Like that would have been extremely helpful. But I live in Vegas, so I just grabbed a couple edibles from the dispensary. Yeah. I was like, I need something for this pain, man. But overall, it's a good thing. I'm not, complaining about it. I understand that it had broader, terrible societal repercussions. But at the time, I was like, something besides ibuprofen, please. Okay, so
And obviously you've recovered, you're healthy.
yes,
feeling
yes, yeah,
good.
yeah. To put a pin in that story, yes, I'm in remission and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah. I might ask you a couple questions, just recommendations after this. But anyway, so longevity, health. We talked a little bit that your first ever podcast was with Peter Attia, who's one of the people that I look up to the most in that field, especially. And his book was tremendous. Ironically, I read it like 2 months before I was diagnosed, but it was helpful because that was I don't remember the exact full reason why I ended up going in, but that was one of the things that I was just blown away that some of like the biggest killers, the big four are in the medical world are only being treated, and there's nothing going into the prevention when the prevention is quite literally our best defense against any of it. Like prevention and early detection is really our only defense against cancer still to this day.
Well, it's almost like the whole industry of medicine is trying to just profit off you being sick.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's weird, right?
Weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
It's almost
I
like
don't understand
it's
it.
almost like trillions of dollars or something like that is going to somebody's
And
pocket.
I talk about this all the time with friends and family, and I don't necessarily think it's like, some evil genius, well, Fauci excluded, but, some evil genius, trying to figure this out. I just think sometimes, you have industries that are kind of symbiotic and organizations that capture each other in different ways. And you can see the FDA and big pharma, certainly share a lot of leadership positions.
Yes.
It seems to be a revolving door. You get to know how the FDA works, and then boom, you're the CEO of a big pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, you're a consultant getting
Or
paid big
consultant,
bucks. Yeah.
Right, how to work through the system.
Yep.
And the system is basically rewarded for profit.
Yep.
And the
Yep.
profit comes from treatment, not from prevention. And, it's unfortunate.
How do you feel about the pharmaceutical industry and advertising? 'Cause
I
we're-
think that should be the first thing that's eliminated,
Yeah.
to be honest. Because what that happens
We're one of 2 countries in the entire
understand.
world. That's crazy by itself. Like, there's 200 countries, and only us in New Zealand they're
Right.
allowed to have pharmaceutical
So that
commercials.
tells you the power of the lobbying and the power of the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
But what that does, it captures another industry, which is the media.
Yes, because they're
Because
bought and paid for.
Who's going to be looking into, whether this particular treatment or vaccination or whatever is safe and effective if every other ad is paid and bought
Quite
by the company
seriously.
that you want to ask that question to.
Yeah,
so, I
right.
mean, look, like I said, no love lost for journalists. I mean, journalists not doing their job.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Correct. Yeah.
They're doing the job to just keep their job.
They're
not doing a journalism job.
They're doing the job that they're got hired to do,
Sure.
but it's not actual journalism anymore, unfortunately. Which is again that's why it's so strange to me that podcasters and really just any non-traditional media has been vilified for that. And it's like, well, somebody's got to be doing the work. Like somebody's got to be providing access to information that's not handed down from somebody who's profiting off of the very information that they're
Or a
spreading.
talking point or a soundbite or whatever. Let's
Right.
get into the deep conversation. Let's get into the
Right.
research.
Yeah, well, you hear, even when I forget his name, the chief medical correspondent at CNN went on Rogan. Probably,
Gupta?
What was it?
Gupta?
Yes,
Sanjay
yes,
Gupta.
Sanjay Gupta. Yep. He went on there, and Rogan just straight up asked him about it wasn't hydroxychloroquine, it was the other one, ivermectin. He just straight up asked him, he's like, but you know that it's not what they were reporting it to be when I said I was taking it, right? And he was, of course, trying to dodge the question. And it was just like, it's so obvious. Like, and even the guy, like, you're the chief medical, like, this is your job to provide accurate information about the medical industry to your organization.
Right.
And
Calling it a horse dewormer and all that
yeah,
sort of business.
that's crazy. It's objectively insane when it's something that's, I had never heard of it, obviously pre-COVID, because I'm not in the medical field, but apparently it's a really widely used thing.
Absolutely. And so, like, we use hydroxychloroquine often for patients who have inflammatory conditions of the scalp. And this is something in dermatology we've been using for many, many, many years. It's not just a malaria drug or whatever.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, I mean, I'm a member of many WhatsApp groups, International Society of Hair Restoration Surgery, and of course, as this was kind of spreading all throughout in the early part of 2020, I'm seeing what's going on these WhatsApp groups. They're saying, hey, our local ER, or urgent care, whatever, whether they be in India or some other location in Italy, they're telling us what's happening kind of in real time. I wouldn't say it's like it's not like X or Twitter,
Sure.
but basically it's a way where groups of 1,000 physicians are telling us what's happening. We saw this many patients, this is what was treated, or a friend of mine had this, that, and the other thing going on. Here's a picture of what happened. No, there's no body bags here. Yes, there are body bags there. So I'm seeing all this in real time. And they're talking, and remember, most of these countries, they have access to these very inexpensive drugs that have been approved for other things for many, many years that they use routinely.
Right.
So ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, they're talking about these protocols. Here's the protocol that worked in the last 10 patients. And if you see that protocol, somebody says, oh, I tried your protocol and it worked, you start to get a sense, a signal out of the noise pops out.
Yeah, well, that's enough data. That's enough data. 1,000 data points.
If you're watching it, right? If you're watching it, just like Elon says, well, he could tell when the algorithm changed, and people were getting shadow banned on Twitter because he was a prolific user of it. Well, during the pandemic, what else are we going to do? I'm watching the WhatsApp group, seeing what's happening. It was a way we got information. Yeah. And there was a lot of noise, but there was signal in there too.
Sure. But
big time.
That's how it should work.
Right.
It's like there's a lot of noise, but in the noise you find truth. And that's how truth comes forward. That's how it rises to the top.
Absolutely. And it's the same whether you're trying a new surgical technique for hair transplantation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens in these, fast moving message groups. So we don't have to wait a whole year to go to the conference. I'm seeing what's happening in real time. Somebody's trying it, somebody's debunking it, somebody says, oh, it worked on this, but not on that.
Yeah.
That's how science is moving forward now at a fast pace. People often ask me, even someone asked me just the other day, how do I stay on top of new technologies? And it's just, just be aware. Just keep your ears and eyes open for information.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways to do it.
What do you think is the solution moving forward to get back to not just in the medical field, but also in society at large? Because now, the problem now is that everything becomes politicized. It's like if somebody that you don't like says something true, you vilify it, even though it might be true, which is wild to me. I grew up fundamentalist Baptist, and so every piece of information was controlled in my life until I was in my early 20s. And one of my core values now coming out of that is accept truth wherever you find it, because we were just not allowed to read anything beyond these
approved narrative.
Yes, these 12 authors or whatever, like anything outside of that, like that person, is a heretic, or this person is a compromiser, or this person, you know what I mean? So you can't accept any information from these people because this is detrimental information or whatever. And again, that's not how truth works.
Right.
And so now you have someone like an RFK who's done tremendous work throughout his entire life, all on the left side of the political spectrum, but now just because he endorses a candidate that is a very obviously polarizing candidate, now anything he says is complete nonsense, and he's a conspiracy theorist and an anti-vaxxer, and all you start labeling people with these terms that make you just not listen to a word that they say, which is so damaging. And I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to take to pull out of that, or what needs to happen in order for people to start accepting that there are sources of truth all over. You just have to be willing to listen.
I think it's full circle. You got to read the book. Go back and read that book, and then you'll know what's going on.
Yeah.
It really doesn't pertain. What side of the political spectrum he's on. I mean, if you want to get down to your ramparts and take a side. I mean, I don't know. I think it's like you say, find the truth where it lies.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. I want to talk about hair transplant stuff specifically, because that's kind of why I'm out here. First off, Turkey. Let's talk about Turkey. I have a lot of friends who have made the trip to go out there. When you and I initially connected, I alluded to that, and then you mentioned something about probably not a good idea. what are the cons? Why should people avoid doing that?
I mean, it's a very big trend, right? Medical tourism has been around for a long time. I mean, there are people here in South Florida that will travel to Costa Rica or Mexico for liposuction, for breast augmentation.
Stem
The
cells.
problem is that when you go out of the country, especially to a third world country, where the regulations are different, sterilization is different, biohazardous waste is treated differently, you may not be getting the same level of care that you think that you would expect to get here in the United States. And I'm not saying that every single clinic in the United States is super clean and all that, obviously, but I think that you're tipping the scales against yourself if you're traveling to a third world country, especially in a location where there's really not much regulation whatsoever when it comes to medical practice. So anybody can open up a clinic in Turkey as long as they just pay the government a registration fee.
That's pretty crazy. It's like a random person.
There's certainly plenty of news reports of people finding out that their surgeon was a real estate agent. I mean, I didn't make that up. I mean, literally just a couple of weeks ago, someone came back from a destination location, had a beard hair transplant. It didn't heal well, it didn't grow in well, and he killed himself because he found out, obviously, that what had happened during the procedure was not on point. It was not up to medical standards, and the person that he trusted to do the procedure was not even a physician.
Wow.
So look, there are great surgeons all over the world, and I know there are great surgeons in Turkey. But if you're responding to a late night infomercial, okay, with a 1-800 number or something like that, I would caution you there. Okay, that's probably not the kind of research that you want to be doing. You got to look at credentials and things like that. And the same is true whether you're getting a text message from some unknown Instagram account or whatever, on social media telling you that, you could just fix the hair this way.
Right.
The other thing that's going to be lacking, aside from just medical expertise, surgical skill and cleanliness and things like that, is artistry. There's no place in the world that has caught up to the United States when it comes to the artistry of these procedures, cosmetically.
Okay. And
so that applies to teeth. People fly for turkey teeth all the time. Now, they only killed 6 people last year getting turkey teeth.
Oh
but artistry is important, whether you're having liposuction, breast augmentation, a facelift, a hair transplant. So if you want to come out of a hair transplant with a thick wall of hair straight across your eyebrows, go great, have a good time. And that's kind of the turkey technique that we warn people about. And some people are okay with it. Look, people loved the plugs of the 1960s and 1970s. Why? Because they were bald and then they had a little bit of hair to comb.
Right.
I mean, they had nothing and then they had something.
Right.
So we understand. A little bit of hair is good.
Yeah.
But today, the technology allows us to provide a painless procedure with 100% undetectable, natural-looking results.
Wow.
So, and that has to do with technology, but also that artistry.
Yeah. From somebody who's actually qualified to do this and has been doing it for a couple decades.
Right. So, 27 years of experience and over 33,000 patients treated and 14,000 surgeries. I mean, this is, a lot of time on tissues.
Right. Okay, so hair transplant, I think, is something that's probably pretty widely known as like the ultimate solution to the problem. But when you and I had our original conversation, the thing that surprised me was that you were saying that even if you get a hair transplant, that doesn't necessarily take care of the hair that would not be transplanted. So that means that if you're not doing something to maintain the hair that you do have that's strong or healthy, or even if it's getting a little bit thin and wispy, if you don't do something to maintain that, then you might have to get another transplant to patch up the spots that didn't get taken care of in the first transplant or something like that, right? So there's a couple of other treatments which we're going to go do after this. So can you talk through like a couple of those other solutions on maintenance and even for what you do for folks after they have a hair transplant?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up an amazing, excellent, and on-point concept that your transplanted hair is permanent, but your other hair is not.
Yeah.
So the reason why transplanted hair is permanent is immune to your body's hormones. It comes from the back of the scalp. Those hairs never go away. So you see somebody with total baldness, they still have hair sides and back.
Yeah.
Those are the follicles that we use for the transplant. Everything else, over time, chronically will progress in terms of miniaturization and loss, depending on your genetics. The speed at which that occurs and the endpoint is on into the future, right? So and genetically determined. So you have to protect the non-transplanted hair. In fact, if you're a younger patient, let's just say under the age of 30, the critical step is not go out, run, get the hair transplant, but get on a treatment regimen to stop the progression of the loss before. And it could be a few months or a year, but get on some medical therapy. So there's a lot of things that we can do. Years ago, it was mainly just 2 pharmaceuticals, minoxidil and finasteride, and that was the end of the story. Today, we take a full inventory.
Okay.
What's your health status? What's your nutritional status? What's your sleep-wake cycle? Do you have whole body inflammation? Are there things that are dysregulating your scalp? Is your scalp healthy? Is it inflamed? Is it itchy? Is it burning? Is there something going on? You have sores or pimples or folliculitis up there. Clean up the scalp first, make sure that's healthy. And then there are therapies, not just medications today, but nutritionals, nutraceuticals, right? And there's also red light therapy, low-level laser, which can be a powerful hair regrowth tool. And then in the office, we've got regenerative treatments like platelet-rich plasma. You're going to experience that. These are therapies that utilize your own body's healing mechanisms to stimulate hair regrowth.
Okay. So it's PRP. Can you define what that is and how it actually works?
Sure. So PRP stands for platelet-rich plasma. Most people are familiar with the vampire treatment, like when it comes to skin rejuvenation. Most people have heard of orthopedic conditions like a bum knee, and there's some injection that's done in the knee, and miraculously 6 to 12 weeks later you don't need surgery. It's healed and it feels good. Usually that's platelets or bone marrow or something like that.
Okay.
So these are regenerative medicine techniques, and we can use those powerful platelets and the growth factors that are contained in the platelets, those chemical biological messages, to rejuvenate hair follicles. So when we do a PRP treatment, we're going to obviously assess the area that we're going to treat. We don't expect an area that's totally dead and gone to come back with PRP. That's not what PRP is. PRP is not a hair transplant. Think of it more like fertilizer in the garden. Right?
Okay.
It's going to rejuvenate the weaker quality hairs. So your procedure takes less than an hour. We take a small blood sample. We map out the area. We're going to do some tracking photos and measurements, and then we're going to we're going to prepare the PRP in a very special way to get to the correct dose or concentration of platelets.
Okay.
There's a few other things that we do to that mixture to make it work, and then we'll deploy that into the scalp in a painless way.
And this is something that you need to have done on a sort of regular basis, correct?
Yeah, so what we've seen over time, the old-fashioned way to do PRP is kind of a series of treatments with a low concentration of platelets. That's kind of falling out of favor. What we've determined is that a powerful, high-concentration platelet treatment is going to work for about 10 to 14 months, one treatment.
Okay, got
So
it.
it becomes kind of an annual bit of business
Okay.
that you'll keep up on.
Okay.
Some patients are lucky, they get more than a year's worth of growth.
Yeah.
And that could be just your response to the PRP. It could be from some of the things that we add to PRP, like exosome therapy, or other things like polydioxidone threads that go in the skin to prolong the effect.
Okay.
And other patients are not as lucky, and they need treatments more quickly.
Okay.
6 months or something, 9 months. But everything is done through measurements. So your response to treatment is going to be measured and monitored.
Great.
Always get a baseline, execute a treatment, whatever it might be, something at home, something in the office, and then we'll look at it over time and see what effect it has.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go do that right now. And I think we're going to get some footage of it as well for everybody watching, everybody tuning in, so you can actually see some of the stuff that's going to go on. Before we move on to that segment, where can people go to learn a little bit more about you, your clinic, and how they can potentially get some treatment here?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're out there and you're thinking that you might be at risk for some hair loss, like you've looked at your family, mom's side or dad's side, and there's some male pattern, female pattern there, you definitely want to get an evaluation sooner than later. We always say time equals follicles. You can lose 50% of your hair without it being noticeable to the naked eye. So get on
That's
top
crazy.
of it quickly. Yeah. So at baumanmedical.com, BAUMAN medical, you can see literally thousands and thousands of pages of information on how we diagnose, evaluate, and treat the hair loss process, from the least invasive to more invasive, like hair transplantation.
Great.
You can ask a question. You go to baumanmedical.com/ask. You can type in any question. What's the best treatment for me or whatever, and I'll get an answer out to you.
Awesome.
You can also initiate a consultation, schedule something for in the office here in South Florida, in Boca Raton, where the mothership is,
Yep.
just not too far from the beach, and right here in sunny Florida.
Yeah.
Or we can start the journey virtually through a Zoom call, submit some photos, some background information, and we can really get a good idea of what's exactly going on.
Yeah, you guys made it really, really easy for sure. Yeah, because we did all that before I came out here just to see like, hey, is there something to do here? And unfortunately for me, there is something to do. So that's what we're going to do right now. Dr. Bauman, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing a lot of great information. I had a lot of fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thanks so much, everybody tuning in. We're gonna go do some treatment right now. So we'll show some of that footage, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Remember to leave every relationship better than you found it. Peace. All right.
Awesome.